Cleveland has reached its breaking point. The fans know it. The players feel it. And inside that locker room, the tension is so thick you could cut it with a helmet. After what went down in Miami, even the people who defended Kevin Stefanski for years are starting to admit it. This might finally be the end of the line. Because when you watch a team this lost, this disjointed, and this unsure of its own direction, it's not just about football anymore. It's about pride, leadership, and the decisions that can make or break an entire franchise. Reports say Browns owner Jimmy Haslam was furious after the game. And honestly, who could blame him? His safe-pick quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, threw for just 55 yards in the first half. 55. In a league built on air attacks and explosive offense, Cleveland looked like a high school JV squad. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback fans have been begging to see, sat quietly on the sideline, helmet on, eyes locked on the field, waiting for a moment that never came. This wasn't just another bad performance. This was the kind of embarrassment that forces billionaires to start making calls. Insiders say Haslam confronted the coaching staff in private meetings immediately after the loss, demanding answers. Why was the offense so predictable? Why were the fans booing their own team? And most importantly, why was the most promising rookie quarterback in the league still sitting on the bench while the season slipped away? Those are the questions Cleveland can't ignore anymore. Because let's be real, the Browns have been here before. The long list of failed experiments, bad decisions, and wasted potential runs deeper than almost any other team in the NFL. But this one feels different. This time, the fans aren't just disappointed. They're angry. They can see exactly what's wrong, and they're tired of being told to trust the process. That process has produced one winning season in the last 5 years. One. And now, as the locker room begins to fracture and players quietly start losing faith in the man calling the plays, the energy around this team feels like it's about to explode. You can sense it. Something big is coming. Maybe it's a firing. Maybe it's a quarterback change. But whatever it is, Cleveland won't be the same when it's over. Because this story isn't just about stats or play calling. It's about a coach running out of time, an owner running out of patience, and a city running out of excuses. It's about a young quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, who represents hope in the middle of chaos. And every second that hope sits on the bench, the pressure builds a little more. So buckle up, because what's happening in Cleveland right now isn't just another chapter in a losing season. It's the breaking point. The moment where everything the Browns built either collapses completely, or finally, after years of waiting, begins to change for good.
If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button.
When the Browns drafted Dylan Gabriel, they called it the safe move, a decision grounded in logic, not emotion. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't loud. He wasn't the type to dominate headlines. But that was exactly the point. After years of chaos and controversy, Cleveland wanted calm. They wanted stability. They wanted a quarterback who wouldn't rock the boat, and on paper, Gabriel seemed like that guy. He had experience, discipline, and a solid college resume. Analysts praised his maturity. Coaches said he'd fit right in with the system. The front office bought into the idea that he'd be dependable, a plug-and-play option who could manage games and minimize mistakes. To them, Gabriel was the antidote to drama. But what they forgot was that the NFL doesn't reward safe. It rewards special. And the moment Cleveland bet on average, they sealed their fate. From his very first start, something felt off. The timing was slow, the throws lacked zip, and his command of the offense never inspired confidence. But instead of facing the truth, the Browns doubled down. He just needs more time. It's a learning curve. He's adjusting. The same excuses that have haunted this franchise for decades came rolling out again, and week after week, the offense kept sputtering. Then came Miami, the game that stripped away every illusion. Under the bright lights in front of a restless fan base and a national audience, the safe pick imploded. Dylan Gabriel looked overwhelmed from the first snap. His passes were late, his reads were hesitant, and every drive ended the same way: punts, field goals, or disaster. By halftime, he had racked up a stunning total of just 55 yards. 55. In the NFL, that's not managing the game. That's surrendering it. Meanwhile, sitting just a few yards away on the sideline was Shedeur Sanders, a rookie with the poise, confidence, and talent to transform a franchise. But he never got the call. Kevin Stefanski stuck to the plan, terrified of making a change that might expose his mistake. It was loyalty to a decision, not loyalty to winning. And that's the real problem. The Browns didn't just choose the wrong quarterback, they chose the wrong mindset. They played it safe when the moment demanded courage. They valued comfort over potential, familiarity over fire. Because in this league, safe isn't safe at all. It's the quickest path to mediocrity. Now that decision is burning down everything they tried to protect. The locker room knows it. The fans know it. And worst of all, Jimmy Haslam knows it. The safe pick has exploded in their faces, and the blast radius is spreading fast. Cleveland's gamble on predictability has turned into a full-blown crisis. And as the smoke clears, one question echoes louder than ever. How much longer can they ignore the quarterback sitting right there, ready to save them? Jimmy Haslam isn't a man known for patience. In his years as Browns owner, he's seen enough losing to last a lifetime, and after what went down in Miami, word is he finally snapped. The cameras might have missed it, but insiders say the frustration was visible long before the final whistle. Haslam was packing, red-faced, shaking his head as the Browns' offense collapsed once again under Kevin Stefanski's so-called game plan. 55 passing yards, against one of the weakest defenses in football. It wasn't just a bad day, it was a public humiliation. When the game ended, Haslam didn't wait for explanations. He wanted accountability. Sources inside the building described an atmosphere of chaos, voices raised behind closed doors, uncomfortable silence from staffers, and a head coach who suddenly looked like a man walking on borrowed time. Haslam reportedly demanded answers that no one seemed ready to give. Why was the offense this predictable? Why were fans booing the team they were supposed to believe in? And most importantly, why was Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback who represented the franchise's future, still rotting on the bench while the safe pick drowned in real time? Haslam has made his share of controversial decisions over the years, but this moment felt different. This wasn't about ego or control. This was about embarrassment. He had invested millions into this team, the coaching staff, the facilities, the roster, and now all that investment was being mocked on national television. You could feel the anger spilling over. Reports claimed he left the stadium without speaking to the media, but not before sending a very clear message: changes are coming. Inside the locker room, players could feel the tension. No one knew who might be next. Some whispered that Stefanski's job was hanging by a thread. Others believed Haslam might take the decision out of his hands entirely and force Shedeur Sanders into the lineup. When an owner reaches that level of frustration, anything becomes possible. But here, where it gets interesting, this wasn't just a single outburst. Insiders say the frustration had been building for weeks. Haslam had grown tired of hearing excuses about development and trusting the process. He'd watched the fan base turn on the team, watched the national media ridicule the Browns for being the same old Browns, and this Miami debacle was the spark that finally lit the fire. The meltdown wasn't just about losing a game. It was about losing faith in the coach, the system, and the so-called plan. Haslam's message was clear. This franchise can't keep pretending that safe football wins in the modern NFL. The clock has run out on excuses. And as that anger echoes through Berea, one truth is becoming harder to ignore. When the owner starts losing control, everyone's job becomes unstable. Because in Cleveland, when Jimmy Haslam blows up, someone always pays the price. The tension inside the Browns' locker room had been simmering for weeks, but after the Miami meltdown, it finally boiled over. What was once quiet frustration had turned into open division, players whispering in corners, glancing at each other after meetings, wondering who still believed in Kevin Stefanski and who didn't. The cracks weren't just showing, they were splitting wide open for everyone to see. For some veterans, the problem was simple. Stefanski's message wasn't landing anymore. They'd heard the same speeches after every loss, the same calm tone, the same "we'll fix it next week" promises. But next week never came. The game plans weren't changing, the accountability was gone, and players were tired of being told to trust the system when the system clearly wasn't working. As one insider put it, it's like playing for a guy who's already tuned out the room. Then there was the younger core, the ones who had quietly begun to rally around Shedeur Sanders. Even though he hadn't taken the field yet, his presence had already changed the energy in the building. Some saw him as the spark this team needed. A new face with real talent and swagger who could shift the culture overnight. Others, especially the veterans loyal to the old regime, saw him as a distraction, a symbol of everything that was about to change. That divide, old guard versus new blood, became impossible to ignore. In team meetings, players who had once been united now avoided eye contact. During practices, body language spoke louder than words. Some guys worked twice as hard, hopping to prove they still belonged in Stefanski's system. Others just went through the motions, waiting for the inevitable shake-up. Behind the scenes, assistants tried to hold things together, but even they could sense the fracture. Some reportedly started aligning themselves with whichever side they thought would survive the fallout. The tension wasn't just about football, it was about identity. Who did this team want to be? The same cautious, play-it-safe Browns that had disappointed fans for decades, or a bold, risk-taking team ready to hand the keys to a young star with something to prove? The media began picking up on it, too. Reports hinted at philosophical differences between players and coaches, a polite way of saying nobody was on the same page anymore. One local reporter even suggested that some players had checked out, while others were pushing for a change at quarterback. Whether true or not, those rumors only made things worse. Every headline, every anonymous quote deepened the mistrust. By the end of that week, the locker room wasn't just divided, it was fractured. Half the team wanted to move forward with Shedeur Sanders and a new direction. The other half clung to the fading hope that Stefanski could turn things around. And stuck in the middle were players who just wanted stability, tired of the chaos, tired of being the punchline of the NFL. But stability wasn't coming. The atmosphere had shifted. This wasn't just a slump, it was a breaking point, and everyone could feel it. Something big was about to happen, because when a locker room splits like this, it never stays quiet for long. A ticking time bomb, a rookie quarterback with swagger, confidence, and the kind of spotlight that made veterans uncomfortable. But whether people liked it or not, the Sanders factor had changed everything in Cleveland. From the moment he walked into the facility, Shedeur brought something the Browns hadn't felt in years: energy. He carried himself with the quiet arrogance of someone who knew he belonged. Even in practice, his rhythm, timing, and command stood out. Players talked about the zip on his throws, the poise under pressure, and that unshakable confidence that seemed almost genetic. After all, he was Dylan Sanders' son, raised around greatness, trained to perform under bright lights. But that same confidence also created tension. Kevin Stefanski had built his reputation on control and structure, not personality and flash. Shedeur, on the other hand, embodied everything Stefanski wasn't: unpredictable, emotional, and unapologetically bold. The contrast was impossible to ignore. In team meetings, Stefanski would emphasize discipline and patience. Then, a few lockers down, Shedeur would be cracking jokes, hyping up teammates, and talking about making plays, not excuses. For some players, that was exactly what they needed. For others, it was a dangerous signal that leadership was shifting away from the head coach. Inside the locker room, players started whispering that Shedeur's time was coming, maybe sooner than anyone expected. The offense had gone flat, the fans were restless, and the owner was furious. In that kind of storm, change usually isn't a question of if, but when. And the truth was, the locker room divide wasn't just about Stefanski anymore, it was about what Shedeur represented: a new era. Social media made things worse. Every time Shedeur posted something, a workout clip, a motivational quote, even a casual smile, it sparked speculation. Fans flooded comment sections begging for him to start. Analysts debated his readiness. And every headline added pressure to a situation already on the edge. For a young player still finding his footing, that kind of attention can crush you, or it can turn you into a star. Behind closed doors, Shedeur stayed composed. Those close to him said he never complained, never threw shade, but he knew the narrative was shifting. "When it's my time, I'll be ready," he reportedly told a teammate. That calm confidence only fueled the myth around him, the belief that once he got his shot, he'd never look back. And maybe that's what scared Stefanski the most. Because once Shedeur took that field, there would be no going back. If he succeeded, the entire organization would have to admit they'd been holding him back. And if he failed, well, that was a risk no one in Cleveland seemed willing to take. But one thing was clear. The moment Shedeur Sanders' name started echoing through the locker room, the old Browns died, and a new chapter began to form in silence. It started quietly, a few boos here and there, scattered across the stands after another 3-and-out. But by the end of that night in Miami, the frustration had reached a breaking point. Browns fans, known for their loyalty through decades of heartbreak, finally snapped. The chants were no longer chants of support, they were calls for change. And at the center of that demand was one name, Shedeur Sanders. Cleveland fans have seen it all, the heartbreaks, the rebuilds, the false dawns. They've been told to trust the process more times than they can count. But after watching another lifeless offensive performance under Kevin Stefanski, patience turned to anger. Social media erupted within minutes of the final whistle. Hashtags like Free Shedeur and Fire Stefanski began trending across X, formerly Twitter. Fans posted clips from practices showing Shedeur's precision throws, contrasting them with the starter's missed reads and turnovers. Talk radio lit up the next morning. Callers were furious. "We've been patient long enough," one said. "If Stefanski can't make a change, then he's the problem." Even former players began to weigh in, questioning the coaching staff's decision-making and the lack of spark on offense. The narrative had shifted. This wasn't just another loss. It was a full-blown identity crisis. The fans were no longer behind the coach. They were behind the kid on the bench. At home games, the atmosphere turned toxic. Every time the starting quarterback threw an incompletion, the crowd groaned in unison. Every time Shedeur appeared on the sideline, warming up, the energy spiked, hope flickered for just a moment. It was clear what the people wanted, and for once they weren't hiding it. Chants of "We want Shedeur" started echoing through the lower bowl. What used to be a supportive fan base had now become Stefanski's loudest critic. Even the media could feel it. Local outlets began running polls asking whether the Browns should bench their starter. The results weren't close. Over 80% said yes. Analysts debated whether Shedeur was ready, but that didn't matter to fans anymore. They weren't asking for perfection. They were asking for passion, something to believe in. And Shedeur represented exactly that, a symbol of change, excitement, and potential. For Kevin Stefanski, this was uncharted territory. Once viewed as the calm, steady hand who brought respectability back to Cleveland, he was now the face of stagnation. The more he defended his decision to stick with the plan, the more fans turned against him. It didn't help that Shedeur handled the growing attention with quiet confidence, no drama, no complaints, just quiet readiness. In a city that values grit and authenticity, that attitude only made him more beloved. By midweek, the noise had become impossible to ignore. Reporters questioned whether the locker room tension and public outrage would force the Browns' hand. And deep down, everyone knew this wasn't just about one game anymore. This was about a city tired of waiting, tired of excuses, and desperate for a spark. The fans had made their choice. The patience was gone. The message was clear. Cleveland wanted Shedeur, and they wanted him now. Kevin Stefanski had been backed into a corner. The media was against him, the fans were calling for his head, and even inside the building, support was fatting fast. But if there's one thing Stefanski prided himself on, it was composure. Calm under pressure. Stick to the plan. Trust the process. The only problem? The plan wasn't working, and everyone knew it. That week, Stefanski faced the toughest decision of his coaching career: double down on his system and his starter, or make the move everyone demanded and hand the keys to Shedeur Sanders. Either choice carried massive risk. If he benched his veteran and Shedeur struggled, Stefanski would be blamed for rushing him. If he stayed the course and lost again, he might not survive the season. Every meeting, every film session, every whispered conversation with his staff revolved around one question: was it time? Behind closed doors, Stefanski wrestled with it. He'd always believed in structure and preparation, and the idea of throwing a rookie into the fire went against every instinct he had. But he could also feel the ground shifting beneath him. The locker room was slipping. The ownership was restless. And the fan base had already moved on. Waiting too long might mean losing everything, including his job. So he made a gamble, one that would define his career. Reports say Stefanski called a closed-door meeting with his offensive coaches late that week. The topic: how to quietly start integrating Shedeur into first-team reps without setting off alarms. "We're not making a change yet," he allegedly said, "but we need to be ready." That line alone told the story. Even as he tried to project control, he knew the storm was coming. In press conferences, Stefanski did what he always did, stayed calm, measured, and deflective. "We have full confidence in our quarterback room," he said, trying to shut down speculation. But his body language told a different story. He looked tired, tight, like a man holding his breath while the walls closed in. Every question about Shedeur Sanders was a reminder that time was running out. Behind the scenes, players could sense it too. Practices felt different. The tempo was sharper, the energy more tense. Some veterans noticed Shedeur getting more reps, even if the coaches pretended nothing had changed. "They were trying to keep it quiet," one insider claimed, but everyone could see it. The kid was getting ready. If you're enjoying this video and loving the content, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up. It really helps us know what you want to see more of. And why keep all the excitement to yourself? Share this video with your friends, family, or anyone who loves NFL drama. Stefanski's gamble wasn't just about protecting his system, it was about protecting his legacy. He believed that if he could survive this stretch, if he could get just one win to quiet the noise, he'd regain control. But that's the thing about gambles, they cut both ways. And when the fans, the media, and even your locker room are all betting against you, one wrong move can end everything. For Kevin Stefanski, this was more than a coaching decision. It was a survival play. And whether he realized it or not, the next game wouldn't just decide his season, it might decide his future in Cleveland forever. When the breaking point finally came, it wasn't announced with a press release or a dramatic team statement. It just happened. Midway through a dismal home game, with the crowd raining down boos and the offense looking lifeless again, Kevin Stefanski made the call. The stadium erupted as Shedeur Sanders jogged onto the field for the first time as a Cleveland Brown. In that single moment, everything shifted. It wasn't just about a quarterback change, it was about hope. The energy flipped instantly. You could see it in the players' body language, in the fans' faces, in the electricity that crackled through the stands. For the first time all season, Cleveland believed again, and Shedeur didn't disappoint. His first series wasn't perfect, but it was fearless. He moved the pocket, threw with precision, and brought rhythm back to an offense that had been asleep for weeks. Every throw carried confidence, not arrogance, but the calm poise of a player who'd been waiting for this moment his entire life. By the end of the game, the numbers didn't even matter. It wasn't about stats, it was about presence. Shedeur had reignited something that felt long dead in Cleveland: identity. He played with creativity, fire, and control. Even when the game didn't go perfectly, he kept his head up, rallying teammates after every play. And that, more than anything, made people believe that maybe, just maybe, this was the guy who could finally change everything. The post-game scene said it all. Reporters scrambled for quotes, social media exploded, and fans who had once sworn off the season were suddenly talking playoffs again. Stefanski called it a situational decision, but no one believed that. The truth was simple: Shedeur had arrived. And the Browns, for the first time in years, looked alive. The Shedeur solution wasn't about saving one game. It was about shifting the entire narrative. He didn't just walk onto that field as a rookie quarterback. He walked in as a symbol of hope, defiance, and rebirth. Whether or not it would last didn't matter in that moment. What mattered was that Cleveland finally had a reason to believe again. And it all started with one decision and one name: Shedeur Sanders. It's the one thing the Cleveland Browns no longer have. Every week that passes with uncertainty at quarterback, every game that slips away because of indecision, is another wound this franchise inflicts on itself. The fans know it. The players feel it. And the owner, Jimmy Haslam, is starting to realize that patience isn't strategy, it's surrender. Kevin Stefanski's refusal to fully commit to Shedeur Sanders has turned into a ticking bomb. The team is 1-6, the season hanging by a thread, and the locker room unity that once existed has fractured. Half the roster believes Shedeur should be the starter moving forward. The other half, weary and cautious, just wants stability. But here's the truth. There is no stability in losing. Every snap Dylan Gabriel takes is another second wasted. Every cautious play call is another opportunity slipping away. The schedule isn't forgiving either. In the next few weeks, Cleveland faces division rivals hungry for blood and redemption. If the Browns keep hesitating, they won't just lose games, they'll lose the locker room, the fans, and perhaps Stefanski's job altogether. You can already feel it in the press conferences, the tense sideline exchanges, the forced optimism. The pressure is suffocating, and the city can smell desperation. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders waits, patient, prepared, professional. Every day he sits, the Browns' window of opportunity narrows, because the NFL doesn't wait for anyone. The great teams adapt fast, the bad ones stall and crumble. The Browns are teetering between those two fates, and the decision they make next could define the next 5 years of this franchise. If Shedeur starts now, there's still time to salvage something, maybe not a playoff berth, but a foundation. Momentum. Hope. If they keep dragging their feet, though, by the time they make the switch, it'll be too late. The season will be gone, the locker room disconnected, and the fan base colder than the Cleveland winter. The clock is ticking on this experiment. The question isn't whether Shedeur Sanders is ready. The real question is, are the Browns brave enough to finally start him before time runs out? There comes a moment in every franchise's story when denial can no longer disguise the truth, and for the Cleveland Browns, that moment has arrived. The Dylan Gabriel experiment has run its course. The excuses have dried up. The tape doesn't lie, the stats don't lie, and the fans certainly don't lie. The only thing left is acceptance. And with acceptance comes change, the kind that can't be postponed any longer. Shedeur Sanders isn't just waiting in the wings, he's the storm on the horizon. Every sign points toward his eventual rise, the owner's frustration, the locker room's exhaustion, the fans' outcry, and the media's relentless questioning. The writing's on the wall, and it's written in bold, capital letters. It's Shedeur time. What makes this takeover inevitable isn't hype or desperation. It's destiny meeting opportunity. Shedeur was built for this moment. He's been scrutinized, doubted, and underestimated at every level, yet he's always responded the same way, by winning people over with poise, preparation, and performance. That's what the Browns have been missing all along, not just talent, but belief. Kevin Stefanski can delay it, the front office can disguise it, and the media can debate it, but the truth will find its way onto the field. The franchise's future lies with Shedeur Sanders, and every week they hesitate to unleash him is a week wasted. Because Shedeur doesn't just represent a new quarterback, he represents a cultural reset, a fresh start, a reason for Cleveland to dream again. When he finally gets that starting job, it won't just be about football. It'll be about redemption for the team, for the fans, and for every broken promise this organization has made over the years. The Browns have tried everything else, the veterans, the projects, the safe picks. None of it worked. Now it's time to try something different, something bold, something real. The Shedeur Sanders era isn't a question of if, it's a question of when. And when that day comes, when he finally takes command of that offense and the dog pound roars behind him, the Cleveland Browns might just discover what they've been searching for all along, a true leader. The takeover isn't coming. It's already begun.
If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and lets us know you love this kind of content. And hey, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with your friends, your group chats, or anyone who loves football as much as you do. The more the conversation spreads, the better it gets. Most importantly, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss when we drop fresh stories, wild rumors, or breaking updates that the mainstream media won't talk about.